Joe Biden appeared on Jimmy Kimmel Live and did not give the most hopeful signs about the likelihood that we will see change in regard to gun reform. So Joe Biden went on the late night show, Jimmy Kimmel Live, and I'm not going to play any of the clips because they're really touchy with copyright, but I'll read you the quotes and we will discuss. So at one moment, Jimmy Kimmel brings up the fact that Republicans are standing in the way, and Biden says, quote, "I get in trouble for saying this, but I've always had a straight relationship with the Republican leader, Mitch McConnell. He's a guy that when he says something, he means it." And Jimmy Kimmel accurately pointed out, like when he said we can't confirm a Supreme Court justice with a year left, and then said the opposite. And that's a great point by Jimmy Kimmel. Biden says that so often. You know, Mitch McConnell, we disagree, but when he says something, he means it. What are you talking about? One of the most notorious things he did in recent memory was block Obama's Supreme Court pick because it was too close to an election. And then within a few weeks of an election, he allowed Amy Coney Barrett to go through. So no, he doesn't just say what he means. He pretended to have some principle about not putting in Supreme Court justices too close to an election when you were still a year out in Obama's case. And then whenever it would benefit him, he flipped on a dime. So stop giving credit to someone who is directly trying to stop your agenda from being passed for, I don't know why, because you missed the old days when people got along. And to be clear, I have a little bit of a different feeling generally about Biden's whole bipartisan thing. He talks way more about trying to reach across the aisle, and a lot of progressives criticize him for it. I personally see the benefit. A lot of voters really like the idea of the Democratic Party trying to cross the aisle, but in this moment, when it is the Republicans standing in the way of getting common sense gun reform, and I'll give credit, there are some Republicans who are saying they're willing to do something, but most of them are still saying, no, we're not going to do any of that. And Mitch McConnell is the leader of the Republicans in the Senate. You should not be doing him favors by giving him this little pass for standing in the way of progress that would help save lives in the future. At one point, Biden went on to say that this gun violence issue needs to be a voting issue. What he means by that is that people can't just say in a poll they support a certain common sense gun reform. They actually have to vote for a candidate based on who supports certain things, which I totally agree with. But we're not going to get there if you, Biden, as someone with one of the largest megaphones, don't make it clear who is not supporting these common sense gun reforms. Right now is the moment to have Democrats get some chance in the midterms by branding the Republican Party accurately as the party standing against progress that would save children's lives and other innocent people's lives in the future. At one point, Kimmel asks Biden, "Can't you issue an executive order? Trump passed those out like Halloween candy." Biden, though, said that he didn't, quote, "want to emulate Trump's abuse of the Constitution and constitutional authority." And while I get what he's saying, you can't be as bad as them, don't do things that are unconstitutional. The whole thing, though, with executive orders is there's so much gray area. What can you do? What can't you do with an executive order? And so instead of going, I think there's a chance this could get knocked down, so I'm gonna back off of it and I'm not gonna sign the executive order. I'm not gonna try to take certain actions because it could be unconstitutional. The courts can figure that out. At least be seen as trying to do something. Sign every executive order you can that can make a difference on gun violence so the people see you're trying to make progress. If the courts knock that down, that's not your fault, but at least you're seen to trying to solve this issue, and the Republicans clearly are not. But Biden does this so often. He just instantly, unilaterally disarms, whatever, I don't know, like, I can't do anything. It seems like I'm gonna have to wait for Congress to do something, but I'm gonna give the Republicans who are blocking things from happening in Congress a bunch of credit for being a straight shooter, even though they lie all the time. Doesn't make any sense. Biden needs to learn we're not in the 80s anymore. Everyone's not buddy-buddy. The way that you are gonna help this country, if you really want to, is to make it clear who's standing in the way of progress. And right now, that is many Republican politicians. You have to get aggressive, Joe. There's no more worthy cause to fight for aggressively than trying to prevent innocent children from being killed. Then Biden went on to talk about how he's so optimistic. When Biden said he's never been so optimistic about the future, Jimmy Kimmel replied, "Why are you so optimistic? It makes no sense." Biden deferred to the nation's younger people, calling them the best educated, least prejudiced, most giving generation in American history. This generation is going to change everything, he added. We just got to make sure we don't give up. Now, yes, I agree with you. We have this up and coming progressive generation who wants to make change, and that's super exciting. But we're not going to be able to get in there and make change if our democracy is absolutely in shambles. And as we saw with the January 6th hearings, our democracy was so threatened. leading up to January 6th, on January 6th, and beyond. And it's going to happen again if the Trump-style Republicans get in power again. And the person standing in the way of that is Joe Biden. So we need you, Joe Biden, to fight with everything you have, accurately characterize Republicans as what they are, and prevent Trump and company from getting their hands on power once again, so that the younger generation actually has a chance to get in power eventually and make that change. One of the things that Jimmy Kimmel did was just say, look at all these things that haven't gotten done yet. Obviously, the big example was gun control, but then also voting rights and a bunch of other things. And it's like, now's the time. You tried to stay super civil. You tried crossing the aisle. You tried to meet behind closed doors with Manchin and Sinema. It's not looking great in the midterms, so now's the time, brother. Take the gloves off, get aggressive, and do all you possibly can to let the American people know it is you, Joe Biden, and the Democrats fighting for their best interest. The people standing in the way, especially on issues like voting rights and gun control, are the Republicans, and the Democrats want to make that change. And so while I give Biden more credit than most progressives on a lot of things, and I think kind of his moderate veneer actually helped him in the election and stuff like that, I'm definitely on board now with the we gotta pick it up, Biden. We gotta find some fire in your belly. Clearly what you're doing now isn't absolutely perfect. Look at the poll numbers. I know there's a lot of other factors that were out of his hands that are hurting his poll numbers, but it's kind of a nothing to lose type situation. Go all out. Don't put your relationship with Mitch McConnell above the fate of the country. And last kind of random point, it is weird how Jimmy Kimmel did a better interview, a more hard-hitting interview than a lot of cable news people do. Like, a lot of the mainstream media will just do type interviews, and Jimmy Kimmel did a really good job of presenting the questions that I would want to see Biden answer.